Hey guys, another week.
Hey, we're back. I
Um,
know we did one shortly ago, but it's
yeah,
technically the beginning of week 2, so
it's actually organized this time and it
yes.
doesn't look choppy and me kind of like, I think it's going. Yeah, so we've actually
Yeah,
got it
me
now.
awkwardly talking about something different and
Yeah.
making the thumbnail, I think, is what I was talking about last time. So, how
Yeah,
are you
and
guys doing? How are your book
mm,
reading, your TBR for the month going? I am still on the same book. I know it's only been 8 days, but I feel like I should be reading like so many books, but it's like it's
oh
okay. I'm
yeah.
still reading. That's progress.
Yes. And I'm a whopping percentage points. Percentage points matter. Hold on. I am 6%.
6%.
My God,
Everybody
this is the
give a
biggest
clapping emoji in the comments below for Hannah's progress.
this is the biggest book I have ever read in my life, and I am gonna be so
It
proud of
is.
myself when I finish it. But okay,
We're gonna have to
book
throw a special
update,
party just for
update.
that, honestly.
Yes, we do. We do. On New Year's, because that's probably when I'll finish, is New Year's Eve. If we're being completely honest.
Probably. I forgot that's this month, you know?
I know. I got to looking and I'm like, we have like first week of December is gone. Like we have 2 weeks and then Christmas break, and Christmas break is 2 weeks, and part of those 2 weeks is
Wow.
January. So I'm like, okay, we need to get going. I need to get
Yeah,
going.
it's pretty insane.
Speaking of getting going, Audible had, not sponsored by the way, but that would be really cool. But
That would
a
be cool.
certain website that you can listen to audiobooks that that company is named after a rainforest. Okay.
Hey, that works.
They're having a sale on books right now, up to 80 some percent off. So I got
Yeah, you
Kingdom
guys
of
need to check that
Ashes
out.
audiobook for $5, even though I get
Nice.
a new credit in like 10 days. But I wanted to be able to kind of listen to the audiobook
Mhm.
like I have
I know that kinda
trainings
helps.
tomorrow afternoon. And so if I have
Mhm.
some free time, it looks like we're going to be busy pretty much all day. But if I get some free time, we're going to be listening to the
Yeah,
audiobook and doing like a hybrid read for some of this. Because I'm making
that
good
would be nice.
progress. I am happy with the progress that I'm
You are,
making,
actually.
but
Mhm.
I don't want I don't know. All right, so we don't want to jump in straight into the book discussions first.
We can just we can talk about our update first, our
Yeah, that's
updates,
what I was thinking.
and then the topic.
Um,
Gonna be an interesting topic of discussion
yeah,
today, this
yeah,
week.
I'm excited. I
So
feel
I assume it's still all angsty because
yeah,
I think we were reading together. Was it last
it's
night? I was technically watching Skyrim and
it's
reading,
the
but
weirdest.
we were
It's the
talking.
weirdest thing because I feel like this is probably the first book where we're gonna get like everyone's POV, all of the
Right.
final set of characters, like the chess pieces, like everyone's POVs. Like we're getting everybody. We're getting
Yeah.
POVs from Tower of Dawn. We're getting POVs from Empire Storms all together, and it's like we're touching it. Where it's like check-ins with each character, and
Hmm.
it feels like I'm watching like you remember when like on Smallville when you had like the big episodes, they would have like the season recaps that would happen. It's like this isn't really a recap because it's new stuff, but it's like each
The
chapter
big
is over a
scale.
different person, and so you're getting their thoughts and their kind of like the like I don't know, a lot of the characters are just either depressed, angry at themselves or their actions, or just like angsty about this whole situation. And it's like
Yeah.
we're getting like I'm being trauma dumped on in every chapter. I feel like I'm being trauma dumped on.
I love that.
And I have this weird, and I think I mentioned this to you earlier. I have this weird sensation that I'm just waiting for the ball to drop. I'm waiting for something like everything to just like kickstart because it just feels like we're stalling. Like certain characters are looking
Yeah.
for these things, certain characters are going here, certain characters are in this kingdom, and it's like okay,
Yeah.
I'm getting a scope of where everyone's at. And I figure that's probably what she's doing is showing where everyone's set up, where all the pieces have been set. Because I
Hmm.
described
If it's a
Empire of
big book,
Storm to
there's
feel
got to
like
be a little bit of setup. Yeah.
and Empire Storm definitely felt like a chess game, or it was like setting up for chess because like all these different characters are moving these move to different places, and and getting different things, and building these relationships and character development and all that. and it's like it feels like it feels like things like we're in like recapping. It's feels like I'm watching one of those champion chess matches where it's like these where all the pieces are set and everything's, and it's just I I
Yeah.
feel like something big should happen, but I'm kind of also kind of scared of something big happening. So
Yeah, I
I'm like,
gotcha.
I don't know what to think. All right.
Yeah. Well,
Update for
I
you.
hope to get over my reading slump, because I remember telling you guys that we had a character POV for 4 chapters in a row, and I'm like, "That's too much. Let's get
Mhm.
back to what I like," right?
Yeah.
Well, the 4th one actually did some political stuff that really was like, "Huh," and it caught
Hmm.
my eye, and it made me second guess. I told you this, but it made me second guess this side character
Yeah.
that I didn't really dismiss, but, like, I kinda already had the feeling it was more of an antagonistic character, but
Yeah.
I'm kinda like it was more intriguing to me
Yeah.
because of what the plans may be and all that stuff. I'm being vague for all of you guys. But, we got back to other characters' perspective, and so it got really good again.
Mhm.
And now I'm back to another chapter where it's not it's just like we're
You're
it's
back to
still his
that
it's
character.
still back to his character, but things are slow right now.
Oh,
And I remember in
yeah.
Fourth Wing, I told in my review and all my things about Fourth Wing how her pacing was so masterful because it was like this really intense thing that you're waiting to get to, like threshing or the presentation and like other different mainstream things that I can't remember the names of right now.
Mhm.
You would be waiting for those events and then it would kind of slow down, but right before you get bored, it would pick back up again. And
Yeah.
like the whole book was like really masterful pacing. And this kind of feels like we had such a really intense beginning
Yeah.
and middle. Like this whole part has mostly been like the most best action sequences and the most creative like magic and like arena kind of style
Mhm.
fighting like battle stuff that I've
Yeah.
ever read before. And then we kind of got into politics a little bit and so now things are kind of slow, but
Yeah.
I'm going to keep reading it because I feel like it has to get, bigger.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping I'm not wrong about that. So I don't know. I've kind of found a balance where I'm like, okay, I'll stop at 4 a.m. There's no like I'll work a little bit and then give myself some free time to play Skyrim. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to try to stop at 4:30 to give myself like an hour of reading time before bed. So that's what I've been trying to do,
Yeah.
which is a tip for everybody else. If you find yourself in a reading slump where you just don't want to read or you have too many other things you want to do when you have free time, try
Mhm.
to dedicate at least a little bit of time, even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes to read every day. I know my sister's really busy, so that's what she did when she was reading Iron Flame, is she would try to read a little bit, just 10 minutes, 15 minutes before work.
Mhm.
And she kind of made little bits of progress every day. And so that's what I'm trying to do is discipline myself to like at least read. Because I do the other thing I wanted to mention, and this is just a book topic in general, and I'd get your thoughts after this, but sometimes I feel like books are really good. They're like five-star books and they're entertaining, but it's like pieces of them, or maybe the book itself is just not what you're into right now. And it's like,
Yeah.
to me, it's like my fault. It's not the book's fault.
Mhm.
And so, my brain, I feel like this is definitely still going to be a five-star read for me, even though parts of it is just like
Yeah.
meh because it's not my mood.
Yeah.
But that's
Okay.
me. That's a
Here's
me
the
thing, not the book.
Yeah. Here's the thought. Would waiting a few weeks to give it a rating help that? Because that's what I do. I try to avoid giving a book a
Hmm.
rating until like a few days after I finish reading it because I'm always on such a like an awestruck high when I finish a book that
Yeah.
it's like every
Yeah, I
book
get
is a
that.
5 star, and then when I go back and look at it later, I'm like, Throne of Glass is not a 5 star. The first ACOTAR book is not a 5 star. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like I can kind
Yeah.
of come back to reality a little bit. Like the honeymoon phase of the book is over. Like I'm not, you
Exactly.
know what
Yes.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like that
Yeah,
would be
I
my
feel like I
question.
see both sides. I see both sides, but reasons for waiting and then reasons for doing it instantly. Because for me, I like getting all of my thoughts out, and I'm so forgetful that I'm gonna forget all the analyzing, all the thoughts. And
Yeah.
I like giving kind of a writer's perspective and a reader's perspective. So
Yeah.
that's why immediately, I sometimes I've even not finished a book that night because I didn't have enough time to film a review afterwards and write my
Mhm.
reviews. Like
Yeah.
I'm talking like 10 minutes as soon as I finish the book, I'm already reviewing it. But I do
Mhm.
see the thought that I have like you kind of settle down out of it. But then also I feel like for me personally, if I'm out of the mood for something, my rating on it's going to go down because it's not my mood right now. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to objectively do that, but right now I'm not really into like the Iron Flame thing. Like I'm still waiting for Onyx Storm and I'm so excited, but like You know what I'm saying? Like, even The Serpent and the Wings
Yeah.
of Night, I love that book, and I'm so excited to finish the next 2, but, like, I'm really into Bloodguard right now. So it's like,
No,
you
I
know what I
get
mean?
that.
Like you said, the high is gone, and therefore, for me, it's like I feel like my rating is gonna be a little bit more negative because the high is gone, and you're not
Yeah.
into that story and into the world. So
No,
I
I get
definitely
that.
see both sides, though.
Yeah, I
It
get
kinda
that.
depends on what do you guys I'm actually curious to see what you guys think in the comments on do you review immediately? Do you wait? Like,
Yeah.
what helps you guys? Like, when do you guys review books? Because I'm generally curious about the
Yeah.
general consensus
Yeah.
for book readers out there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
had to get a
And it's one of those things like what I've come to realize is that I have to make sticky notes on the books I read. Like now that I've tried to like which I haven't posted in a little while on my blog, but I've been trying to like update my blog some more and be more consistent with it. But
Mhm.
and one thing I have noticed is that I'm gonna have to start writing down like put sticky notes on the inside cover and write my overall thoughts on the book and my thoughts on the characters once I finish it.
Yeah.
And then if I don't go back to actually reviewing it until later, then that's fine. But like on Goodreads, like I will just mark it as done. So that way it counts as towards my reading goal for the year. But then it's like
Mhm.
I may not put an overall rating or on Fable, I may mark certain things like the little tags that it gives you, but I won't actually put like a
Mhm.
star rating on it if I can keep from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That
I
makes
don't know.
sense. Yeah.
And it's where it's like,
I
well,
know,
I
I
guess
really
in
love the
my,
Kindle.
and I guess like in my head, I'm like, if it's truly a 5 star for you, for like for me at least, I'm still going to be
Mhm.
just as passionate about the book 5 months later than I was when I finished it. And so it's like, even if
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
get
in the
that.
mood for it, like in my head, a 5 star read, a genuine 5 star read is a book that I'm still going to be passionate about it. Like when I get to reviewing it. Like if I'm just
Like
as
a sort of
passionate
recent
about it,
ruin or
yeah,
force
yeah.
we can
If
talk
it's like,
about that and still remember the beats that
uh-huh,
really made that book
yeah,
made
yeah.
us enjoy it kind of thing. I
Because
see what
there
you're
were
saying, yeah.
because like there were certain books in the Throne of Glass series that like there's like certain ones like in the middle. I think it was um Air of Fire, I think. Either Queen of Shadows or Air of Fire, one of those two, I forget. My Goodreads rating would tell me. I'm pretty sure it's Air of Fire. Um it like I genuinely was my favorite, and there's like so many things that just character growth was huge in that one book, and it's like I
Mhm.
loved it, and it's like I would, and it's like with Akatar, there are certain
Yeah,
books like Silver Flames is like genuinely one of my favorites, and I could, you know, like go on and on about it, and it's like,
yeah, I get that.
so it's like I don't know, it's a really interesting thought because like, and then there are some
It
books
really
that
is because
like I've read book one and then book two was just left so many plot holes and the book was a duology. I think it was like the Pioneer and the Savior. I think it was the Pioneer. I forget who it was
mhm,
by. Um, Essentially they're trying to make a new Earth because the old Earth is like gone. So they're traveling to this
right,
new planet that's supposed to be the new Earth, essentially. It's like more of
right,
a middle school aged read, but it was like book one was really genuinely good. I enjoyed it, but it's a duology, and it's very obvious. Like it was stated that it was a duology. It's somewhere online, and book two left so many plot holes and it felt almost rushed, and I'm like, and then there are certain books where I'm like, I'm just as passionate about the fact that it wasn't a 5 star read. So it's like I don't know. It's a really, and I guess
yeah,
that shows like why it's you shouldn't compare yourself to other readers because each person is so
mhm,
different in how their brain works and how they
mhm.
rate things and how they look
'Cause
at things.
I've seen a lot of like there's a one book reader that I follow on YouTube that actually does rate it based on like, okay, well, this is a good read, but it's fit more for the summer and it's fall, and she does base her reviews on other things too, but that is a criteria for her that I'm not really in the mood. It was kind of like too much of a fantasy and I'm more into
Yeah,
romance or vice versa, whatever the case is. And that's
yeah,
fine because for me, I feel like book readers, and this is an interesting take for an author to have, but I'm also a book reader. It's like you as the reader have the right to rate the book whatever you want based on whatever criteria you want. Like authors, we would be more objective in rating writing based on the writing style, the editing, we're
Yeah.
more technical and analytical.
Yeah.
But for readers, it's about how much they enjoyed the book. It's about what the book made them feel or what they thought or their mood or if it fits
Mhm.
a certain season or if it was a good holiday read or, insert
Yeah.
thing here. And so it's like, and then there's the other aspect too that on the author side, I've heard a lot of authors don't rate books they read because they're afraid of, offending other authors and you don't want to get, like if you're an author and you rate somebody low, then you're going to offend that other author and then, all that stuff. So it's really interesting to talk about.
Yeah, for
Even though
sure.
that wasn't even the planned discussion, but we're really good at going on tangents.
Hey,
So,
bookish
but that was a
thoughts.
good one.
Any bookish thoughts?
Good thought. Yes.
Bookish thoughts.
But our other thought, okay, so here's the main debate of this that we were actually
Okay.
interesting wanting to talk
Yes.
about is I was reading an article and it talked about how Shadow and Bone was canceled, and the hope is that I think it was Fourth Wing. Was it talking about Fourth Wing? The Fourth Wing movie adaptation or Akatar, one of those, could be a nice little thing for people because Shadow and Bone was canceled. And so we were discussing about how sometimes it feels like Hollywood doesn't actually do the like especially recently they're not doing book to movie adaptations very well. And
Yeah.
I'll let you do your thoughts on that.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how other people read and what their how their brain works when they read. But what my head does is I don't really picture what the characters look like per se. I'm not a facial features kind of picture, but I'm like a scene, like more from like a first person perspective of like looking at the scene. Like that's how my brain
Okay.
views it as a story. Like when I'm reading,
Yeah.
the whoever's POV it's focused on, that's what my brain is kind of picturing, and I'm kind of following along like a camera, looking at like as they're
Mhm.
looking. That's how my brain pictures it in my
That's
head.
another interesting
So it's
topic
like,
to talk about too.
and so it's like, it's when I'm reading stuff like, for example, like Valerius, like with Akatar, where the night court's at, and where the spring court, and I had like a whole vision in my head of what I thought the spring court looked like. And it's like, and there's a couple different thoughts I have on this. And it's like, one is I'm always concerned, especially with these newer series as I've gotten older, that I'm very passionate about, like Akatar, Fourth Wing, Throne of Glass, all of these. I don't know. I'm very massiverse focused because that's what my goal is at this moment. But it's like any book
Yeah.
series, especially ones like Hunger Games that have already been started and they're adding books to that series, and it's like, one, I don't want to be disappointed or let down by how the locations look and how different they are than what I visioned in my head. But
Yeah.
I'm also feel like, at least with the ones that I've seen, I haven't seen Wicked yet, and I haven't read the novel, and how I don't know a lot about that universe, so I can't speak a lot about that, like musical or theater adaptations with all of that. But one thing I have noticed is like, at least with the newest of the Hunger Games books that came out last year was A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I made the point, because I know how in my head I how it works. I have to, if it's becoming a movie, I have to read the book first because I need to visualize what it looks like in my head for myself before I watch the movie, because after I watch the movie, I'm going to be visualizing the characters as they look in the movies, visualizing the places
Yeah.
as I see them in the movies. So if I want to read a novel or read a book, firstly being introduced to the novel or the book or the series, I need to know what it looks like in my head without the movie's influence, if that makes sense. And so
That actually does make sense.
I read through The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I loved it. There's a couple times where was kind of losing interest, but I found being inside Snow's head was fascinating, and the way he thought, the way he kind of, not kind of somewhat sort of manipulation, but it wasn't, because like, I don't know. And it's just whenever it was put into a movie, his thought processing and what he was thinking, and how people assumed that he was best friends with this guy. But in the books, you realize in his head, he doesn't see him as a true, he's not friends with this guy at all. He's just hanging out with this
Mhm.
guy because it's a part of the image, and he's just, there. And the fascination that he had with, what's her name? The girl.
Yeah. I
Sue.
was trying to think, but I can't.
Oh, I can't think of the name. It'll come to me later.
It wasn't
But
like Lucy
Lucy,
or I
Lucy
can't
Gray.
remember.
Lucy Gray.
Lucy Gray.
And
Lucy.
it's like, he didn't love her. And it's like as you read through the book, you realize that he did not love her. He was
See, the ending
fascinated
I
with
thought the
her.
ending of the
And he
movie
was
was
it
really
was
confusing and
yes.
not clear
And
what had
and it's
gone
like
down.
and in the movie it almost makes you want to feel bad for him. And that's where it's like in the movie it's but it's like
I
in the
remember
book you
doing it, yeah.
realize that his like literally the way his brain works in the movie is very unique and very different, and it just didn't come through in the movie. I felt like the way I had read it in the books. And also Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, it felt so rushed to me. And when I look back at the other books in
Even
that
I got that
series,
from the
the
movie, and
other
I haven't read the
movie,
book.
well, in the other movies in the series, for example, Mockingjay was the biggest of the original three. And if you remember, I went back and looked at this myself. It's split up into two, it's like, I don't remember if it's two sections or more than two sections. I'm pretty sure it's just like part one and part two. It's split up into two sections. And
Yeah,
Ballad of Songbirds and
and they
Snakes
did
is
2
three
movies.
sections, and they did two movies for Mockingjay, but they just wanted to pump out because everyone was obsessed with it on social media. They wanted to pump it out as quick as possible and get the book out as quick as possible because of marketing. And it did really good in the
Yeah,
it did pretty well if I remember correctly. It did really good.
yeah,
But it's like but they put one movie for the entire thing. And it's like there are
yeah.
times where it's like Snow, and I'm not going to say spoilers, I'm going to be vague here, but there are times that Snow made certain decisions that had huge impacts on other characters that it's like was intentional, but they squished it together and they took what I would view as very key scenes out of the movie to make it, and it was just I don't know, it was just disappointing. And that's where it's like, do you read the book before the movie? Or do you, I mean, like, because if you read the book before, in today's world, if you read the book before the movie or the TV show and then you start watching it, you're going to be disappointed because you're going to pick out all the things they took out that you enjoyed or that you were fascinated by in the book. But if you watch the
Mhm.
movie first, then it's like you're booking through the movie, you're reading if you watch the movie or the show and then you go back and read the book later and it's like, oh, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's an inter and
I
even the
have,
topic of rushing content for getting content
oh
out
my
there, because
gosh.
I feel like Disney, Star Wars, and Lucasfilm have that right now
Yeah,
because they're trying to put out so many different streaming shows that they're just pumping out content
yeah,
without actually thinking about the story, and like you said, making it into where it should have been 3
yes.
movies or even 2 would have helped. And, like, it's interesting because, like, for me, I've read a lot like, I've watched a lot of TV shows that came from books, like Vampire Diaries and, well, Outlander, Game of Thrones, some of those that I really enjoyed the TV shows, but I've never actually read the books. And so
Yeah.
I know Vampire Diaries, the book fans, I don't think they translated over because the TV show changed, but the
Hmm.
TV show became a phenomenon and grew its own fandom apart from the books. And so
Another,
it's one of those things.
yeah.
And then like you have Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings
I was
where
just thinking
those
about
became
The
famous in
Hobbit.
their own right.
Well,
Yes.
see, and I was
And The
like, and
Hobbit is
and
one of
I
those.
recently, because I've been slowly working my way through all the books, and I've watched all
Mhm.
of the movies because I love Lord of the Rings, but I've never actually read the books, and so I recently read through The Hobbit, and one thing I noticed that even, and I guess this is always a thing, but it's like I guess The Hobbit is the newer of the books, so. But it's like they added romances, they added family dynamics into the movie that wasn't in the book. They I don't know, Thorin Oakenshield, the main dwarf guy, the main prince guy that is going to be king,
Yeah. Thorin.
like in the book at the beginning, he is acts so much more kingly and respectful and just he acts like a king. But in the movie,
Mhm.
he acts like this pouty like not really pouty, but it's like almost like he's not spoiled,
Brooding a little.
like not spoiled, but he's like I don't know. He's like looks he
Entitled.
looks down at
Entitled
he
broody.
looks down at Bilbo. He's really disrespectful to the elves, and it's like in the movie it's very played up. And in the book it wasn't to that extent. And as you go through, cuz spoiler alert if you haven't watched any the movie or whatever, but it's a really old book, so it's really you have no excuse. But like if you
That's funny.
but like if
At
you
least you did it
watch
beforehand.
hey, I did it beforehand. I'm learning. But it's like as you go through the book, you realize, and because once they get under the mountain, Thorin becomes very corrupted by this gold, like greedy. by this gold.
Mhm.
And it's like you
Absolutely.
see, and it's so fascinating to read to see the gradual it is not like the most descriptive book that you're ever going to read because that's not Tolkien's style. He doesn't write like he doesn't write in the style that Sarah would, or that like C.S. Lewis doesn't write in the style of like the authors of like Game of Thrones or whatever. Like you don't they're from a different it's a different time period of novels. It's like they don't write the same. So it's not the most descriptive book you're ever going to read, but it's so fascinating because the world is so huge. But in the book
Mhm.
you could see how the dialogue that we get, you see from how he sounds at the beginning is very different than how he sounds later on. And
Yeah.
it's like
Well, here's an
you
interesting
just in the
thing
books
to
you
bring
don't see
up.
that. It just seems I
Yeah.
don't know. It
Here's an
seems like
interesting
he gets humbled in the middle and then he goes back the way he was and I'm like that's not how the book dynamic was at all.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting other thought too is number one, a couple things. Number one, or when you I've talked about this before, but like when you make a movie, obviously it can't translate exactly unless you're going to have like a 17 season show that actually does one chapter per episode, which I don't know why they
Yeah.
don't. It would work like literally one season is
Yeah.
one book and each episode is a chapter of the book. To me that makes perfect sense. You have
Uh-huh.
20 chapters, 30 chapters, whatever. But
Yeah.
either way, so you have to get to the bones of like what the story is and like
Mhm.
get the meaning across. Even if you have to splice things up or change it up or whatever. But the other thing is that too, some people don't read, and so I feel like some of these movie adaptations have brought in fans of the movies that never did
Mhm.
read the books that would not have otherwise heard about the
Yeah.
books. You know what I'm saying? And a good question for readers is for adaptations that aren't done well, or maybe are done okay, but they're not perfect, and they're just kind of average adaptations in the movie, and they're just
Mhm.
not perfect.
Yeah.
Would Is it better to not have any adaptation at all, or at least to have something out there that you could have a movie or a visualization of this book series that you loved,
Yeah.
as opposed to nothing at like, is the alternative better with nothing at all? You know, like where you'd rather it not have been made
Yeah.
at all? And that's
And
an interesting question, like personally for readers, like if you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
And I guess that's where it's just like a lot of people would just say if you don't like it, don't watch it. And it's like and that's very fair. Like if you don't like a movie, then that's fine. But it's like if I go into a theater because I've read the books and I go in expecting it to be somewhat similar to the book, and then when you watch the
Yeah,
movie, it's so far removed. Like the original an example of this. I watched the first Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, the original movie, before they started making the TV shows, like the OG movie.
yeah.
I watched that one and I loved it. It was a great movie. I loved it. So good. I'd never read the actual book. So when I go to school, I find the book and decide to start reading the book. At the time, my reading skills weren't nearly to as developed as they are now because I was a struggling reader for a long time and I was just getting out of that. And I it was so different because I was trying to follow along with the book, follow along in the movie with the movie in my head as I read the book. But the book was so different. There were key things that were different enough from the movie, or the movie was different enough from the book that I never got through that book. I still haven't read that series. And I mean,
Mhm.
a lot of people would argue that's a really well-known series. The Percy Jackson series, and I want to read
Yeah,
it.
it's really
But
popular.
it's like I at that time I had was just coming off the movie. I'd watched the movie a couple times. I really really liked it. And I'm like, well, I could just kind of and I was picturing the characters from the movie as I was read through it, but it was so different that I'm like this wasn't in the movie. I remember thinking that at one point, like this isn't in the movie. What's this? What's going on? And
Mhm.
I ended up stopping it, stopped reading it, and returned it to the library and went on to something else. And it was sad because I'm like, I wanted to read that series. I wanted to keep going. And they never made any more of the books into movies. So it's just like the first two or three. They never finished the full
Another good
series.
example from my perspective, though I've actually read the books and watched the movie and the TV show because they did
Yeah.
both with Shadowhunters, the Mortal Instrument series.
Okay. Yeah.
It became a movie first, and the movie flopped. for obvious reasons. The movie was a bunch of crap. And then they decided later on they adapted into a TV show. And there's another interesting thought or question to add to the debate is movie adaptations versus TV show adaptations and which one works
Yeah.
better. Because I feel like sometimes with the TV shows, they have more time to like breathe and include things. But then you
Mhm.
have ones like Shadowhunters or even Vampire Diaries, like Shadowhunters is the example I'll focus on because I've read the books, where you have the time, you have everything in place, but you
Yeah.
still change up the details so much that it becomes something totally different. The final season, like they were canceled halfway through a season, so they had like 9 episodes to like wrap up the whole show, and
Mm.
they knew those were going to be the final episodes.
Yeah.
And they changed actors for one of the main antagonists. So Clary's brother Sebastian. The season 2 Sebastian was one of the best villains I've ever seen. Like he is such a
Uh,
good
yeah.
both Sebastian and villain. The last guy was this whiny little brat. Like, I don't know,
Mm.
any Shadowhunters fans, let me know in the comments what you think. But and in the social media campaign, when they were like trailering for the final season and all that stuff, they were like, we've got this new great actor. They were hyping him up as such this great actor. But
Yeah.
he's just this whiny little brat, and it's just ruined Sebastian's character. And
It's
then all
frustrating.
like everything changed. And
Yeah.
so it's one of those things where it's like I really enjoyed the TV show, but it was nothing like the books, and those were my favorite books. So on the one hand, I was kind of mad, but on the other
Yeah.
hand, I've come back to the TV show several times to rewatch it just because the first 2 seasons are genuinely good until you get to the last. I think it's the third. Is it 3 seasons? But the whatever
The
the last
last one.
season
Yeah.
is, yeah, and stuff, and
I
it's
don't
just like
know. Like with the
you know
book,
what I mean. And I don't know.
with the movie
I'm
versus
right in
TV.
the middle.
Yeah. And like with the movie versus TV thing, I think for me, and I don't know if I'm just kind of nitpicky or like, because I always get angry, frustrated at readers when they nitpick at books, for things that I don't really care about. But it's like one thing that
We
is
all
I'm
nitpick
really,
though.
and it's like, but at the same time, one thing that I'm really big in is I love the character's thoughts because I love getting a POV where it dives into what the character's thinking and what's going through their head and why they're doing the things that they're doing and are they, are they doing this for malicious intent or not or what's going on. And it's like in books, unless you have a voiceover the entire thing, you
That's what
can't
I was going to bring
portray
up actually.
you can't portray that. And it's like am I really gonna be that as passionate about a series with books than I am the movies? Like I feel like the closest thing I've gotten really passionate about, like I want to read the Harry Potter series. I haven't read them. I've seen clips. I've seen for the books that I've read, I've seen the movies for, and I've seen a couple clips from the one book that I'm not done reading. And I pretty much know most of the spoilers of what happens, sadly, because I've had friends in college that are fanatics of Harry Potter. They love it. So I know a lot of I've been spoiled to some things. So I pretty much know most of what's happened. But it's like I imagine that will be one of those things where when I watch the movies after I've read the books, I will be pretty as passionate about the movies. I'm imagining. But like Hunger Games is probably one of the only the movies that I've probably been pretty passionate about and with the books
Yeah, I would
both.
say.
But it's like I don't know. It's just I don't know. I
Well,
guess
I
it's
feel
like
like you because I then you could also talk to like filmmakers and how because I don't know I just get fascinated by it, but like even like camera people and like how there's a whole art to like directing and how you move the stuff I don't get. I don't see what a lot of people see when they analyze different things like that. If they know camera direction and how you can show emotion through the camera and how
yeah.
it pans and zooms and all that technical details that are lost on me. But I do
Yeah.
feel like with stuff like that, you can get visuals and then the other aspect, if you get a really good actor on screen that's
That's
pulling
true.
this emotional thing, like Denzel Washington, like I've heard about people analyzing how good he is. When you look into an
Mhm.
actor's eyes and you can see the emotion of the character, you
Yeah.
know that's a good. He's with
Yeah.
me.
And I guess
Gotta let the dogs out. So, but
yeah.
so you know what I'm saying? Like you can see the emotion all over their face, and those actors acting like performances can pull emotions out of you.
Yeah.
I guess it's the same way with an author, but sometimes I've looked at like different scenes that are like and analyzed them and how you can write that into your story. And I find that kind of difficult to actually
Yeah.
pull off in a book. Like you can make emotions with your, words and all that stuff. Like there's some books that are just emotional and
Yeah.
amazing. But and like this one made me laugh. Like I don't think I've ever laughed actually out loud from a
Mhm.
book before. Like there
Yeah.
was a really comedic scene that I really enjoyed. that I wish I could talk about, but I can't. But I feel like sometimes you have actors, and I with the journal thing, I wanted to point out Dances with Wolves. I grew up with that movie with Kevin Costner. It's one of the most
Yeah.
famous westerns. Um, I didn't know that was a book, and when I discovered it, I read it from the library, and
Mhm.
I actually read the book after growing up with the movie.
Mhm.
And with that one, you have actually instances where he keeps a journal in the book and in the movie. And so in the movie, Kevin Costner does a voiceover of his journal
Mhm.
entries from the book that
Yeah.
actually does show his thoughts. And so I was going to ask you about that is certain movies, because I know there are others, but my brain's blanking on
Um,
anything but Dancing with Wolves, where
one
they actually do the character and have the character's thoughts from the book actually have quoted in the movie. Because I
yeah.
know that's happened before, but I'm literally blanking
Yeah. Well, and that
on what like the Notebook too. I've heard that's
oh,
actually a book
yeah.
first, and
Oh,
he's reading the story to her. So
The Martian is one that does that. It's like,
yeah,
but it's like text of his like vlog, his video recordings, or like his journal recordings. But then it go
yeah,
rotates to on Earth where it's the normal book dialogue. But any of his stuff is like his journals, his writing, his like logs. What
yeah.
another book that was adapted into a movie where I watched the movie first and then read the book, and it was pretty similar. News of the World. It has who does it have in it? Let me look this up because this is gonna bother me.
I actually haven't heard that yet. I know I did watch Shadow and Bone season 1. I never watched season 2, and I didn't know the show had been canceled. So when I read that, I was like, "Oh, that's
It
kind of sad." But
has
I've heard somebody else said season
oh, it
2 was
has
really
Tom
bad.
Hanks in it. Tom Hanks.
Oh,
It's
okay.
um it takes place in um after right after the Civil War, like the aftermath of the Civil War. So it gives that kind of time period. Is this when you had people that would go travel? They would have a newspaper and they would go from town to town reading the newspaper. And so it's about
Mhm.
this girl that was a girl that was being held by some Native Americans. They were trying to get her back to her family, and this whole it's a really good novel. It's a really good book. I enjoyed it, but
That
it's like
sounds like
I
something right
the
up my
movie.
alley.
Yes, I think you would actually like it. I think I
Mhm.
have the book somewhere, so if you want to borrow it at some point, you can. But
Okay.
I watched the movie first with Dad, and then I found out that
Mhm.
it was actually based on a book, and so I read the book, and honestly, the book was pretty similar. There were a few things that they took out or changed, or like small details that was rearranged,
Yeah,
but it was like I enjoyed it. It was nice.
that's good. So here's another question, flipping everything. What movies have you watched that you actually was like, "I really wish there was a book to this. Like, I really wanna read
Ooh.
this." Because I have one in mind. There's this really good you brought up Westerns, and we're on Native Americans and stuff.
Yeah.
Woman Walks Ahead is
Mhm.
about this woman whose husband dies, and she goes out west because she's a painter and she wants to paint Sitting Bull, and so she goes to
Yeah.
the reservation and gets permission to paint him, and it's not really a romance per se, even though I ship them,
Mhm.
but nobody wants her to do this, so she gets a lot of, like, they beat her up and they, haze her and do all this stuff because they don't want her to paint Sitting Bull. They don't care about the natives. Like, it's really, really good. And it's such this heartwarming kind of just drama, historical drama, I would say. And I really wish it was a book. Like, I really,
Yeah.
really wish it was like
Okay.
a historical
Here's my
drama
here's my
book.
question though. There are movies that will get novelizations of them. So are you wanting like but the novel is written from the movie? Because I've read the one of the newer
Well,
Star
just a
Trek
movie that has a novel version, whether that's a novelization or like an
okay.
author wrote a book about it, you know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
in general,
Yeah.
having words to read in a book
Because I
format
think because
that
like I
whether it's
was
different or the same
yeah,
or
because I was
whatever.
thinking Interstellar, but there's a novelization of that. So I feel like you could probably find most movies end up having a novelization, but I know what you're meaning
Right.
though. Like you're wanting a
Yeah.
novel that wasn't written straight from the movie. Like,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Well, I actually have that's a good thought because I actually have the novelizations of Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3, and
Mhm.
even the novelization of them, there's so much extra stuff in here that
Yeah.
can't be put in the movies that,
Mhm.
like, in episode 3, there's this whole added plot line that was taken out where it was kinda based on the deleted scenes where Padme is actually, like, politically going up against Palpatine, and her and Anakin are against one another politically, and
Mhm.
there's this whole
It gives
subplot
glimpses
with
of
them
that
being on
in the
opposite
movie.
sides of this
Yeah.
political, but it actually like adds to the thing because he doesn't want to like they don't want to be against each other politically, but they are, and like this whole
Yeah.
political warfare, but like political warfare,
Yeah.
and it adds this whole extra plot line
Yeah.
that is just so good.
Yeah.
So that's another thought.
Trying to think. I at one point I thought about reading um the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker because I'm pretty sure I have it on my bookshelf over there somewhere. I thought
Uh
about
huh.
reading it. I thought about reading it just to see if it would like change my viewpoint or help soften the blow.
Yeah.
I haven't
Okay.
yet.
So
Oh, another one. I
uh,
have one more book. It's called
okay.
Fractal Noise. I know it, I think it's a prequel to another series, but I haven't read the other book in the series. Um I'm totally spelled that wrong. Yeah, it's not even gonna pull it up. I
That's
butchered the
funny.
spelling of that. But it's I don't know, it's like a space Star Trekky vibe, but it's
Oh,
based
that's
in
cool.
space. And it like, the novelization, it
Mhm.
was really good, and it was like you watching these characters explore this new planet that was getting like things coming off from signals coming off of this planet, and it's like you're watching these characters that aren't they don't enjoy each other's company anyway, but like you're slowly watching them drive themselves insane and go crazy, and it's kind of like really fascinating. It's like a psychological thing. It's kind of cool.
I
They don't
love
really kind of
psychological
go
ones.
like some of them go crazy, and it's like I don't know. It's just really strange, and it's like it
Hmm.
has this really weird vibe that you can tell it's leading into it's building to a whole nother thing. It's written by the guy Christopher Poloni. It's the guy that wrote Aragon.
Cool. I like Aragon.
But I don't know what
Um.
series
So
it's from.
so here's my hot take and why book to movie adaptations actually I don't like them and why there's an aspect that I don't like about it today specifically. Maybe
Okay.
be a hot take, but
Yeah.
what I don't like is because it goes along with the whole lack of creativity in Hollywood and in movie
Mm,
industry
yeah, it's
today
true.
because nobody
Yeah.
has an original idea anymore. It's either a book adaptation, it's either a sequel, a prequel, or another one it part of a series. It's like nobody has any original ideas anymore, and you'll get a couple movies
Yeah.
here and there throughout the year, but for the
Independent
most
ones.
part,
Yeah.
mainstream stuff is not original content, and it irritates me because it's a lack of creativity. Like you have to adapt somebody else's work because you don't have any ideas of your own. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, it's like as an author seeing your book series adapted, like that's what we all want. Like I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
sure that's every author's dream ever. Like I prefer
Yeah.
mine to be a TV show, but whatever. With
Yeah.
me writing the script, but that's
No,
beside the
I get
point.
that.
So it's like, but it just what irritates me is just like the lack of creativity. Because it's like
Mm-hmm.
at first it was kind of cool because we had Twilight and we had the Hunger Games and we had Divergent and then we had Shadow and Bone and we had Shadowhunters and insert anything ever. It's probably been a movie
Well,
adaptation. You know
and
what I'm saying? Like,
what my frustration is too, on top of that, building off of what you're saying, is that
mhm,
you get books that, and we all know how wishy-washy book talk is, and I'm not gonna touch it too heavy on book talk because it's so full of drama now. It's like I don't even like
yeah,
book talk is this whole other world, but like a book will get really really popular in book talk, and all these big corporations see is money in their pocket, and they think, oh, all of these millions and millions of people love this book, we have to make it a movie as soon as possible. And then in a couple months the hype has gone down, and then you see, oh, we've started this couple seasons of this movie adaptation from a book, but now not as many people are interested in it, so we're going to cancel the season and not make any more. And it's like we've seen that happen so many times with the rewrites of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I'm like, and then there's the Shadowhunter series, and it's like there's all of like there's just the shadow was the Shadow and Bone that you said, and
yeah,
it's like the hype for these books are so big that all these companies, they're so disconnected from social media and how that works, that all they can see is, oh, at this point in time, like millions of people are really interested in Akatar. But it's like
mhm,
now I feel like since Silver Flames has been out for a while, Kingdom of Ash has been out for a while, Iron Flame has been out for a while. So people aren't talking about it like they have been. And it's like these companies, like, all they can see is money at the moment. And it's
Yep.
like, I don't know. Sorry, I jumped into
It's
your
an
rant
interesting
there.
no, it's okay. It's just like from a writer standpoint too, because I was talking about writing to the trends the other day in one of my personal shorts. And
Okay,
it's
yeah.
like writing the trends is hard because like you said, they're over so quickly. Can you really write a book and get it published in time to keep up with the hype?
Yeah.
Because generally they're gonna be over. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like
And that's
billionaire
when,
romances or romantasy, fey romantasy, all
yeah.
that stuff. Like it's the hype ends so quickly.
We'll
Like the
see.
vampire romances lasted for
Mhm.
a while. Fae romances are still kind of coming and
Yeah.
going,
Yeah.
but people just get into different things and it's like it's so hard to keep up with. And that's
Well,
what the like you said the movie adapter people
yeah.
don't it's just not going to happen fast enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but
I just
it's
I don't
definitely
know.
interesting.
It's definitely
I was
interesting.
actually looking up what
Okay.
are your guys' favorite and least favorite book to movie adaptations? Like, let us
Yeah.
know in the comments below
Yeah.
because I'm curious to see which ones you
My
absolutely despise the most and then
let's
which
say
ones you've
okay.
actually enjoyed,
So
if any.
what are your favorite? What's your favorite and what's your least favorite?
Yep, that's a good
There's
one.
yeah. Like my favorite would probably be Hunger Games, just because it's very nostalgic for me. I didn't like the
Mhm.
first. I don't like the Twilight. I don't know. There's certain I I don't know. Twilight is one of those books where I wish that they would redo the movies and get actors that genuinely want to be a part of the series. Because there's been lots of
Yeah.
interviews with Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart and all of them. It's like, you
I
know,
feel like Hunger Games is a big one. That was one of my favorites. I feel like Shadowhunters is both my favorite and my least favorite, which
yeah.
is the conundrum
I
about that
wanted
show.
I wanted to get into Divergent, but I feel like by the time the movies came out, I was falling out of that kind of phase of my life, and so I just didn't watch the movies. Did they make all three books into movies? I can't remember.
Mhm. They're all done. Yep.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I just
They were
haven't
pretty good too.
I haven't even
I
read
think
that
they just
series. Like I have books 2 and
yeah.
3. I just been waiting to find book 1 in a thrift store somewhere so I can get it.
I really loved reading them, and the problem for me was the disconnect by the time I got it like, by the time the movies came out, I hadn't read the book, so I forgot
Yeah.
things. So to me, the movies were good, but that's because I forgot what the movies were. Um, I know I've read Aragon and I've watched Aragon, but it's been so long and they were both disconnected that
Honestly,
I know my
I
husband says that it's bad, that it's a bad movie
I
adaptation.
yeah, it's very different from the book. So different. But the thing is, it has been so long. It had been so long since I had watched the movie that my brain couldn't connect scene to scene with the movie and the book as I was reading. So it was like
Yeah.
I was making up my own thing in my head because it had been so long since I had seen that movie that like there were certain
Mhm.
scenes that seemed familiar and I kind of recognized. I remembered how like the little village at the start of the movie looked like. I remember what that had looked like, what the his house had looked like. But other than that, like my brain was able to pick up pieces that I had remembered from the movie, but like had placed them in as like, placed them in as my brain
Mhm.
was building this stuff in my head. So it's like
See,
honestly, it
I
wasn't
don't
too bad.
remember I
But it
want to know if I can't remember if I watched the movie or read the book first. And I can't remember.
yeah.
I remember they were far apart. Whichever
Yeah.
one I did first, the other one I did way later, so they were completely
Yeah.
disconnected for me.
That's the way I did. I
But I
watched the
don't
movie
I
first
literally
and then
don't
read the
I
book.
remember I never kept reading it though.
Well,
I
to
never finished the
and
series.
to give people yeah.
I loved it though.
Well, and to give viewers an idea of just how long I waited, I watched the movie when I was in middle school, and I just read book 1 this year, and I'm 27. So
Wow, dude.
it has been
That's
a,
big.
and
I
that's
was
what I'm
thinking like
saying.
high
Like
school, but like
it
yeah.
was it was so different that I had to wait like 10-15 years before I could actually read the book and enjoy it because the movie was so different. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I what is with it? Like it's like I feel like there's such a disconnect between the book world and Hollywood. Or and it's just like
Yeah.
you would think if they're
Well,
so
and
dead
see
set on using these series as movie adaptations, and I guess maybe we're misinterpreting what that means because it's like a movie adaptation, so it doesn't have to be exact. But it's like if you're gonna use a world that's based on a book, then make it accurate.
Because you're also doing that instead of creating your own because you want the
Mhm.
fan base, but it's like you're not
Yeah.
gonna please the fan base by changing it. And like with Game of Thrones, the problem with it was that they made the characters older in the movies, and when I
Mhm.
read the books, I was like, "Oh, this is like they're 13." Like I just it
Yeah.
turned me off and I just never like I bought the whole series and then I never read it. And then in that one you ran into the problem where they caught up with George R. Martin and he never wrote the next book. Like he's still writing the book because he takes forever. He's notorious for taking years to write one
Mhm.
book.
Yeah.
And they continued it on their own, and that's why the last 2 seasons, ask any Game of Thrones fan, it is crap. Like it just plummeted and went downhill. Everybody
So
hates the 8th season of Game of Thrones
is he still gonna
universally.
my question, is he still writing the 8th book? Like, is he actually gonna publish
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, he said in
Why would they
interviews that to him
continue?
the books are the his mindset is the books are the books, the movies are the movies. He is completely separated. His books are his books, the movies are the movies, and he doesn't
Like
really associate them.
honestly, to like for context, I've never read the Game of Thrones. I've never watched it. I'm not too interested in reading or watching them at this point because from what I've heard,
Yeah.
everyone dies all the time, and that's not my kind of cup of tea. But
It's probably worse than
it's
Kingdom of
kind of
Ash, let me
ironic
tell you.
because I'm reading this, but like that's
Yes.
probably laughable. Like in the future,
I
I'm probably gonna
guarantee you
laugh
it's
at that
worse.
statement. But yeah, but it's like that would irritate the crap out of me if I was a fan, if I was a big fan of that series.
Literally
Why
imagine
would you continue a TV show if the author had not written the next book in the series?
I don't know, it because they don't wanna wait on him, but literally
That's
spoilers
annoying.
for Game of Thrones, minor ones, but imagine a main female character that's been set up as this lead, okay? She's
Yeah,
freeing slaves, she's going through freeing people, becoming big, literally 7 seasons of her just building and fighting and clawing for
yeah,
power and for freeing people, so compassionate. And granted, she comes from a people who a family who's notorious for going insane, like the Targaryens always go mad, but
yeah,
still she's set up as this big epic queen. And in the 8th season, she finally gets to King's Landing to like lay siege and like take the throne. We're like, yes, go,
yeah.
Khaleesi, you can take the throne. And she uses her dragons to like burn everyone and everything. And she just goes completely crazy. And it's like, yeah, you have that history, but like you've set up this whole arc with her
That's
and she
annoying.
goes crazy. And then Jon Snow, he's the other male character from a completely different family. They finally, manage to meet up and stuff because the characters are all
Yeah.
over the place and most of them never interact with each other.
Mhm.
And they finally actually got Jon Snow and Khaleesi to meet, and they actually did start like a romance with them, but he ended up killing her because she went so crazy. And
Yeah.
he was also set up, spoilers for Game of Thrones, as the secret illegitimate son of the previous king. So he's actually the true heir to the throne, and
Huh.
that secret was thrown in there. It was this huge twist. So you're like, yes, we want Jon Snow on the throne with Khaleesi by his side, vice versa.
Yeah.
But he kills her, and because he kills her, he gets banished, and he literally ends up right back on the wall where he started, like as a guardsman on the wall, all the way back in season one.
I
Seven,
don't
8 seasons of character development and just for everybody to go back to who they was. And that's not even like that's just 2 of the characters. There was another one
yeah.
who he oh my god, he Jamie ran right back to his sister, like rant in the comments, everybody. Game of Thrones fans, like, let me tell you, it was just like, and that's because the directors didn't know what they were doing when they started making it apart from the author who knows the world and the characters best. Like the first several seasons of Game of Thrones are so loved. Like they were so good. People were just going nuts over
Yeah.
them because it's George R. R. Martin's brain. That's
Uh-huh.
his writing, his help with them.
Mhm.
And
His
then
world.
like it does, and like you said, it doesn't even make sense to adapt the rest of them when the author hasn't even gotten the book out yet.
Literally,
Like that doesn't make sense.
that's just them making a fan fiction sequel. Like it's not even part of the series. Like and it's like and
Yep.
here's my question. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to irritate anybody. But as a fan of Game of Thrones, why would anybody support those newer seasons if it wasn't based off of the author's work? Why would anyone support
Yeah.
that?
It was more
Like if you're
it
only
probably was more
if
fans
you've
of the TV show.
if you've only been introduced to the TV show, I understand because
Yeah.
you've only watched the TV show, so you're enjoying the TV show for what it is, the TV show. But if you're
Yep.
watching the TV show because you have read the books and you are a fan of the books, like why would anyone even consider watching it? I wouldn't. If it was
Yeah, I
based
would
off
wait.
of something that wasn't even published yet and there's no way
Yeah.
they could have any insight into what was going on and they're just making up stuff, I'll go to Wattpad for that. I'll go to Archive of Our Own for that.
But
I don't need to
yeah,
watch this giant big series for that because I guarantee you people on Archive of Our Own or Wattpad's going to write it 1,000 times better than anyone else could.
probably. And that's an whole nother
Sorry,
topic for
rant
another
over.
day, but, like, why is Hollywood getting writers that actually don't know what they're doing?
Oh my god.
Oh,
And actors that have never even watched or read or know much about the series at all, just plopping down. If you have been hired to act in a major fandom that has lots of history, lots of books, lots of movies in the fandom, do your research.
yep. Don't
Because
think that Anakin
if
blew up the Death Star.
because
I'm
here's the
looking at one of the acolyte
oh
actors.
my god, I remember seeing that interview.
Anakin blew up the Death Star.
Oh my god. And I'm like, I felt like that emoji where it's like,
Good job, dude.
actually, that was Anakin
Actually,
Skywalker. That was Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker's
that was
son. And
Luke.
that was actually in this particular movie, at this particular scene. It's like, but I'm like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just, oh my god, people irritate me.
And didn't he say that, like, Luke was the ultimate bad guy, or
Yes!
what was it that
Something
yeah,
like that. And I'm
something
like,
like I can't even remember.
actually, he's the savior of everything.
Actually,
I'm sorry. I've ranted
uh,
way too much tonight, but I just need that off my chest.
yeah,
Look at my techno
it's
plushie.
okay.
He's so cute up there.
That's cute.
My techno
I
plushie.
have dragons, but they're all turned around the other way. So, and a
Techno's
Christmas tree that you can't
and
see.
my god, I'm sporting techno tonight. Right,
Cool.
he's the guardian of the bookshelf. That's what he is.
That's
That's his
cool. I
permanent
like that.
spot on the bookshelf. Even
I
though my
also
hair
love your
covers it.
Midnight Sun thing, even though I still have your actual book.
Oh,
It's like the Just Jack. I keep forgetting to give it to you. Like you literally stayed at my house,
oh
and
my
it's
god,
still sitting on
twice.
the shelf.
I
Like
visited
both.
your house
Yeah,
twice. And you have come to see me twice. And you
yep.
still have this book.
I know. I need to give it back.
Oh my
Oh, I need
gosh.
like a calendar notification or something. Like,
I will set a notification on my calendar, an event on my calendar that says "Get Midnight Sun" from Joanna on New Year's Eve.
yep,
We'll get
that's a
it.
good one.
Uh,
All right, so I think that's good for our week 2 checkup.
yeah,
Again, how are you guys doing?
we've
Let us
ranted
know in
quite
the
a
comments
bit.
below what you're reading and
Yeah.
what are your thoughts and
Any
everything.
other
So
bookish
my hope
rants that we
this
don't
week,
if you have any suggestions for rants that you want to see do next week, let us know because we will rant about it, I'm sure.
yeah, I thought about asking my Facebook groups just to see
Oh, that would be
what
good.
topics they come up with.
Yeah.
So my hope is to get through the slump, through the slow parts, which I get. You have to have recovery time. You have to have some romance time. I'm
Yeah.
trying my best to get through it. So
My
also,
my
I
goal is
did
to
get a
get
book
more
tonight,
than
so I'm excited to try
ooh,
it.
my goal is to get more than just 2 percentage points through the book this week.
Okay, yay! So you're at 6. Let's see if you can get to 10. Can you get to 10%
Ooh. Okay, we'll
through it
see.
this week?
We'll see.
All right, we'll see. And
All
can
right.
I get through my reading slumps?
Yeah.
That's the
If you
question.
can get
Stay
through your
tuned for the
political
answer,
reading
people.
slump, I can get more than 2% through this book. More than
Yep.
2 percentage points advancement. All right. All right. We'll have a little short ending stream bit and then I'll see you guys tomorrow. Or not tomorrow. God.
Yep.
Later. We'll see you later.
We're not doing another check-in tomorrow, but yeah, we'll check in with you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.